Right, so I thought I should probably do a bit of a wrap up on the Turnigy SK450 quadcopter. Basically, Hobbyking states that it is ready to fly, so essentially what that means is you should be able to just take it out of the box, stick a battery on and go out and fly. To be fair, well, you do have to do a bit extra. Well, I don't know if everyone will have to, but I did have to actually bind the transmitter and receiver together. I think there's something else they said you have to do. Probably just calibrate the accelerometer, but that's just something in the menu on the controller board. But in reality, if you want it to actually fly decent, you're going to have to do a bit more work. And unfortunately, that's sort of defeats the purpose of ready to fly. I mean, I'm sorry, puppy bumping the camera around here. So by ready to fly, like I said, it should mean you should be able to just take it out of the box and get it up in the air straight away, basically. You can do that, and like I said, it doesn't fly well at all. It was really mushy, it was wobbly, unstable. It didn't oscillate, but it didn't fly well either. The gains were just way too low. So what you're going to have to do basically is reflash all the ESCs. It comes with the multi-star ESC stock, which they say are designed for multi-rotors, but they're obviously not because they don't work that well. And other people on the Hobbyking site themselves have brought up the same thing. So you are going to have to reflash the ESCs. There's no solder pads on them, so you're going to have to solder directly to the chip or get the little flashing tool that Hobbyking sells. Apart from that, they're just basically the same as all the other ESCs. They just use the ATmega 8 microcontroller, so the pin out and all that's exactly the same as most of the other ESCs, so you shouldn't have any issues finding tutorials or whatever on how to flash them. And just use the KDA.hex firmware file, the Simon K firmware. Apart from that, you probably will want to flash the controller board as well. It's the KK2 board, but it actually comes with, I think it's the 1.2 firmware stock, which isn't that great. It works, and it works alright, but the later versions of the software, I think I put 1.6 or something on it now. The stabilization or the self-level function is a lot better. And when you're getting into multi-rotors and stuff, you probably do want to start on the self-level stabilized, whatever they call it, mode. Reason being is because in the acro mode or normal mode, if you basically say pitch forward and let the stick go, the quadcopter will just keep going forward until you bring that stick back to sort of level it out yourself. So basically wherever you move the stick, it'll just stay like that until you counteract it, basically. And if you're just learning to fly, well, I mean, you can learn to fly that way, obviously. Things like aeroplanes and whatever, you don't really have a choice. But if you've got a smaller area, self-level mode's great because you push the stick forward, goes forward, let it go, it comes back to center and sits there. So yeah, you probably want to start off on that mode. Acro mode's good if you want to sort of get into the more like 3D flying sort of thing, but honestly, quadcopters and that sort of thing aren't really designed for that. I mean, you can do flips and that sort of thing, but they're not really, can't really do the same sort of thing as, like the tricopters and the variable pitch helicopters and that sort of thing. Yeah, apart from that, everything else actually seems to be pretty good. I've landed on the arms, or crashed it on the arms a few times, not from very high up, but I have. And no, they all seem pretty solid. They are a bit flexible, as you can sort of see there. So with some controller boards that might be an issue. Maybe if you put like the like the Quadcopter board or something like that on there, it might have an issue. But that said, I haven't balanced any of the motors, any of the props, anything like that. And it flies really solid after reflashing. So what I'll do is I'll show you some of the PID settings and stuff I've got on this one, just in case anyone else gets a bit stuck with their PIDs. I didn't have much luck finding any sort of examples, so I sort of just started from the top, brought it down until it didn't oscillate and left it there. The controls are probably a bit mushy for some people, but you can just crank the gains up a little bit and you're good to go. So I'll stop the video here and I'll try and get a shot of the controller board screen. So hopefully you can read this easily enough. So this is on the KK 2.1 board. Like I said, it comes with the KK2, but once you reflash the 1.6 firmware onto it, all the menus and stuff are essentially the same. So it will look a bit different if you don't bother flashing it. I mean, everything's still sort of in the same general direction. So if we go into the menu here, we'll start off with the PID settings, or the PI. These are the settings I've come up with. I prefer using my quads and stuff for, putting cameras on and that sort of thing, so I'm not too fussed about, super high gains and, really touchy movements, so found these settings work pretty well for me. You should be able to get it working just sort of in the general ballpark anyway. They're not that critical. So roll and pitch are linked, obviously. I think I just left standard, doesn't really seem to make much difference. So that's those. Receiver, those. I think there's anything in there. It's all standard stuff. I do have my stick scaling turned down. I think that's on default, so 30%. You probably want to crank the throttle up to 90. I mean, there's not really any point limiting the throttle unless it's severely overpowered. Sorry if my fingers get in the way a bit there. Settings, nothing really in there. And the self-level settings, that's the gain I came up with again, so it's basically the same as the Acro PID settings. One thing I wasn't actually sure about is the first PID settings in the menu aren't actually for stabilized mode. Those are purely for Acro mode. So if you're trying to fly it in stabilized mode and you adjust those, the PI editor settings, it's not really going to do anything. These are the settings you need to adjust. So I'd recommend if the thing won't get off the ground at all, if it's just crazy unstable, put it into Acro mode, see if you can actually get it off the ground, just keeping it stable yourself. Play with those values a bit, and then if you can get it off the ground with that, stick it into stabilized mode and then play with these values a bit. Most people have said they can basically just link the values, basically make the values the same as in Acro mode, and it works pretty well, so you sort of have to play around with that a bit yourself. But like I said, if you're running the 1.6 firmware and you flashed all the ESCs, your values should work pretty similar to mine. But apart from that, that should be all the settings you really need to know about. I'll zoom out a bit here. So actually one thing I will mention is that I ended up using the 8-inch props instead of the 10-inch. For some reason they just seem more stable. I think it might be because the inertia is a bit lower on the motors, so in turn they can react a bit faster, so it's a bit stable. It's fallen off there. But anyway, hopefully that video is helpful to some people looking at these. So, in general, it's not ready to, it's ready to fly out of the box, but it's not going to fly well out of the box. Flash it and do some, basic work to it, and they fly great. For like $200 you get basically everything but the battery. Reflash the ESCs and controller and off you go. That's all you have to do to it. So hopefully that video was helpful. Let me know in the comments if you want to know anything else about it. And what I'll do is I'll just add in a bit of footage after this of actually flying the thing. So hopefully that'll give you a good idea on whether this is something you want to purchase yourself. Right, so now that I've flashed all the ESCs and the control board with newer firmware, let's see how this flies. Just using the stock transmitter.